Okay, so today we're going to take a look at lesson 12. We're going to use some measurement tools to convert mixed number measurements to smaller units. So starting off with number 1, we're going to draw a tape diagram to show 1 yard divided into 3 equal parts. Okay, so we have our tape diagram. Okay, this is representing 1 yard, and we have 3 equal parts. Okay, now each of those parts is going to be 1 foot, okay, because 3 feet equal a yard. So now we can see using fractions here, 1/3 of a yard is 1 foot. So 2/3 of a yard would then be 2 feet. And then finally 3/3 of a yard, or 1 yard, would be 3 feet. Okay. So now moving on to another tape diagram. So we're going to show 2 2/3 yards equals 8 feet. Okay, so we're going to have 1 yard. We're going to have another yard. And we're going to have a 3rd yard. Okay, we're going to go up to 3 yards because we have more than 2. Now we know that from our tape diagram up here that each yard is made up of 3 feet. So we're going to draw little dotted lines here to show our 3 feet. Okay. So now if we shade in our 8 feet, okay, we can then see that our 8 feet is 2 full yards and then 2/3 more. So here's our 8 feet. Okay. Looking at number 3, we're going to draw a tape diagram to show 3/4 of a gallon equals 3 quarts. Okay, so this should be a little bit easier because remember from our gallon picture up in the front. Okay, so if we have 1 gallon, okay, 1 gallon is made up of 4 quarts. Okay. And so we're going to shade in 3 of them. Okay, so we have 3 quarts. Okay. Alright, next one we have 3 3/4 gallon is going to equal 4 or 15 quarts. So I'm going to draw a long tape diagram for this one. Now I have almost 4 gallons, so I'm going to make 4 sections here for 4 gallons. Okay, so 1 gallon for each of these. Each section is 1 gallon. Okay. Alright. Now, we know again that 1 gallon contains 4 quarts. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw some dotted lines inside each of our gallons to create our quarts. Okay, so we're going to draw 3 dotted lines inside each of our gallons to create 4 quarts. Okay, so now if we're going to shade in 15 of them, it will look like this. So we'll just have 1 quart over here, not shaded in. And so here's our 15 quarts. Okay. Alright, moving on to the bottom now, we're just going to take a look at a foot. We're going to imagine this foot being placed over a number line. Okay, so we know that 1 foot equals 12 inches. Okay, as you can see, 12 sections. So if there's 12 inches in a foot, 1/12 of a foot would be 1 inch. Okay. Now our next one here, we have how many 12ths of a foot is half of a foot. Okay, so even ignoring the units, we got to think, well, how many 12ths make up 1/2? So we can think about our fraction conversion, and we know that 2 times 6 is 12. So 1 times 6 would be 6. So 6/12 of a foot would be 6 inches. Okay. All right. Same thing with this next one. Well, what's 1/4 of a foot? Okay. So again, we have to think. Well, what do we have to multiply 12ths by? Or what do we have to divide 12ths by to get to 1/4? Well, I know that 12 divided by 3 is 4. So what divided by 3 is 1? Well, that's going to be 3. So 3/12 equals 1/4. So that means 1/4 of a foot is 3 inches. Now we're going to need this measurement for letter D over on the next page. Okay. So now again, we have how many twelfths is 3/4 of a foot. Okay. So now if we want to do it the other way with multiplication, we can think, well, 3/4 times what is going to give me twelfths. Okay. Well, I know that 4 times 3 is 12, so 3 times 3 is 9. So 3/4 of a foot would be 9/12 of a foot, or 9 inches. Okay. And the same thing here, we have 1/3 times something to get twelfths. Alright. So 3 times 4 is 12, so 1 times 4 is 4. So 1/3 of a foot is 4 inches. Okay. Alright, next one. Okay. If 1/3 of a foot is 4 inches, we need to find out how many twelfths are in 2/3. Well, 2 times 4 is 8. So if 1/3 of a foot is 4 inches, 2/3 of a foot is going to be 8 inches. Okay, for our next one we're going to solve doing some different conversions, all different units. So, our first one here, we have 1 1/3 yards being divided up into feet. So we're going to try to make a smaller unit. Okay, well, we know that 1 yard is 12 feet, I'm sorry, not 12. So we know that 1 yard is 3 feet. 1/3 of a yard is 1 foot. So that means we have a total of 4 feet. Okay. Now for our next one. Numbers are getting a little bit bigger. Well, yards to feet. Well, 4 yards, okay, is going to be 12 feet, because 4 times 3. 2/3 of a yard is going to be 2 feet. Okay. And if you're not sure why, look back at what we did over here with number 1. 2/3 of a yard, 2 feet. Okay. So total now, that gives us 14 feet. Okay, now moving on to some volume, some liquid measurement. Okay, we know that 1 gallon equals 4 quarts. Okay. So 2 gallons would then be 8 quarts. Now, half of a gallon. Well, if 1 full gallon is 4, half of that would then be 2. So now we can add that up and get 10. Okay. Same thing over here. We know that 1 gallon is 4 quarts, so 7 times 4 is going to be 28 quarts. Now we want 3/4 of a gallon. Well, if there's 4 quarts in a gallon, we have 3 of those, so that's 3 quarts. Add those up, we have 31 quarts. Okay. Going back over to our measurement here, this length measurement, feet into inches. Okay. Well, we know that 1 foot is 12 inches. How much is half of a foot? Okay. Going back over here to number 5, we see that 1/2 of a foot is 6 inches. So that means we have 6 inches over here for a total of 18 inches. Okay. Same thing over here. 6 feet, 6 times 12, so that would be 72 inches. Plus half of a foot would be 6 inches. So that gives a total of 78 inches. Okay. All right, next one, we have 1 1/4 feet into inches. Okay. So we know 1 foot is 12 inches. Okay. Now we need to know what's 1/4 of a foot. Well, again, we just did that over here in letter C. So 1/4 of a foot is 3 inches, because 12 divided by 4 is 3. Okay. So we put our 3 inches over here, and that gives us a total of 15 inches. Okay. finally here, our last one, we have 6 1/4 feet. So again, 6 times 12 gets us 72. Now we have 1/4 of a foot, which we figured out over here was 3 inches. Okay, add that up, and you get 75 inches. Okay. So for today, we're looking at converting a larger unit into a smaller unit, and especially thinking about it in fractional parts.